This is a book review of What If? The Complete Collection Volume 2. Came out in 2019 and includes 370 pages, predominantly colour, and with a little bit of black and white bonus material, back various inked pages. Now it's got the stories, and I'm just going to quickly go to the back so I get the right ones. What If 13 to 15? There's a gap because of licensing issues with a Shang Chi story, and then 17 to 23. Whole variety of different people involved. Marv Wolfman, Stephen Grant, Roy Thomas, Bill Manzolo, John Buscema, Herb Trimp, Carmen Infantino, and Gene Colan, and Tom Sutton, and many more. Slightly confusing cover because that scene really didn't happen, certainly not with, makes him look more like Conan. And also this back is a bit confusing, makes them look like champions. However, they're not, separate stories. Also, the blurb at the back, completely nonsensical. It's got a story here, multiple spider people. No, well that didn't appear. Cap and Bucky survive in World War II. No, that was in a different one. Also, what about the FF with different powers, and so on and so on. So Daredevil, Secret Exposed, Hammer of Thor. Why put that on the back when that's none of the stories occur? Very odd. Anyway, no introduction, but you've got the listing there of all the various people, which is great. Then into the stories. So you've got What If Conan Walked the Earth Today? I love this one because it's Conan, John Buscema, Roy Thomas, I should say. Conan's great writer, Roy Thomas, John Buscema, and Ernie Chan. So you've got Conan there battling away. Of course, he goes into the future, and you've got Danette, character. I don't know if she ever basically looks like Red Sonja. Basically, it's not Red Sonja, but it looks like Red Sonja. Micronauts are coming, so you've got letters pages there. Love letters pages. Would be nice if the epic collection or complete of Micronauts came out. Unlikely. Maybe. Who knows? So you've got next story, Sergeant Fury, Howling Commandos, World War II in space, outer space. Not so good. Don't mind Sergeant Fury. Not so keen on this story because just ridiculous premise. And it's just not very well done, particularly to my mind. It's a bit of a confusing story. You get the usual suspects. I'm not going to say who they are, but turn up. It's like Spider-Man and Doc Ock, Daredevil, Kingpin. Well, obviously, Sergeant Fury has his nemesis. So, what if Nova had been 4 other people? And you've got here Fantastic Four, Peter Parker, Doctor Doom, etc., which is slightly confusing cover. As far as I'm aware, there is Nova is not Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom does not become Nova. Now that would have been an interesting story if he suddenly got the Nova powers as well. However, so you've got Nova, so he's got the Skrulls, you've got Doctor Doom does appear. Also, a few other villains turn up as well. I like the best one is the one where Nova is a villain at the end, and that's a real good story. There you go. Great bit of artwork there. I mean, it's not bad. Not a bad story. All 4 of them. Quite decent. And then you've got another one, these sort of split stories. They obviously decided it's point to do some split stories. This one is What If Ghost Rider, Spider-Woman, and Captain Marvel were villains? Which in a sense they supposedly were initially. Of course, you've got, he's not really a villain, I suppose. It's a Ghost Rider. Some people would say he was a villain. Spider-Woman, of course, initially against S.H.I.E.L.D., of course, became the heroine that we know. And, of course, Captain Marvel, again, not really a villain. So it's a bit of a weird one. When they says villain, it's misunderstandings maybe in these stories. But certainly Captain Marvel, don't classify it being a villain. He is not human. He is a Kree and therefore has his allegiance to the Kree, of course. Therefore, why should the Earth was a villain? Of course, the Kree Empire is only probably 60 trillion people. Earth, obviously with a population of 7 billion, is pretty small. You got Doctor Strange, were a disciple of Dormammu. That's a good story. I really love it. And the artwork is superb. Tom Sutton, really, really good story. Genuinely, I enjoyed that story. It's nice twists and turns. You got Eternity, you got Doctor Doom, you got the lot in this one. It's a great tale. The next story is pretty good as well. What if Spider-Man stopped the burglar who killed his uncle? And he becomes an entertainer. And I love that. That's great. And you've got a great... I love Jonah Jameson. Brilliant. That's some really good bits in there of Jonah Jameson. And also, of course, Peter Parker, how he changes because he's a celebrity. The Kree one, well, that's good. What if the Avengers fought the Kree Skrull War without Rick Jones? Well, I guess it would obviously have made quite a big difference, but I don't know. I must admit, it wasn't a story that I'm super familiar with. I read it years and years and years ago, and I've read it a few times, Neil Adams, but it's not one that I could say that I could sit there and think, you know what, if this happened or that happened or that happened, that would make this much difference or not. But clearly, it's still a good tale, and it's a nice, satisfying, good ending. I'm not going to say what the ending is, but it has to, for me, with all these stories, has to be what I think is a good, and there's some that have got terrible endings, like real sort of rushed endings. Like you have all the story and you think, whoa, that's good, good. And then bang, 3 panels, the story's like, oh, and by this way, he dies or lives, etc., and becomes this or that. So I'm not really, I don't like those sort of, and that's why I trouble with some of these ones that are very short. There's also, this one's a very good one. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. In fact, brilliant. Submarine, this is a continuation of What If 1. What if the Invisible Girl of the Fantastic Four. I love the way, of the Fantastic Four. Do we really need to say, what if Invisible Girl of the Fantastic Four? Surely Invisible Girl had married Submariner would have been enough. Or Invisible Woman, of course. So you've got that story there, and you've got Super Skrull there. And that's, I say, we've got the continuation. So I love the fact that poor old Spidey, who of course is in the Fantastic Four at this point, I'm not spoiling it because that was in the earlier issue of What If 1, doesn't appear on, what's his name, box there. He's gone. We're not going to bother putting him on there. But it's a good yarn. Actually, very good. Really great artwork as well, of course. And I will, of course, turn around and say, Gene Colan. You, of course, know it's Gene Colan as soon as you look at the artwork. I was just quickly confirming that it was, because I don't want to like saying, oh, it's Gene Colan, and then find out that it's not, because that would be totally wrong. Really good story. This one's quite good as well. I really love this one. This one, the next one, is Doctor Doom had become a hero. And that's good. I think that's the sort of what ifs that everyone loves to see. What if Red Skull had become a hero? Maybe he didn't. Well, obviously he must have met Hitler because, of course, he wouldn't have become Red Skull. But maybe if he killed Hitler or something, and he changed and became a hero. Or if Magneto, oh hang on, he did become a hero. And Doc Doom's been a hero quite often. But it's still a great tale, and it's a really good story. I love that one. And it's, I'm not going to say what happens in it because it's a classic, I think. And it sort of fits with some of the other stories, of course, of Doctor Doom's life. So it's not completely a random event where it's like, So this one's quite a nice one as well. What if Hulk had become a barbarian? Now, that, to my mind, though I pointed out that this does not appear, obviously, it's the cover of this book. However, one would think, why? Why did they call it had become a barbarian? Because the story is, according to this, Hulk's, and that's what I read from it, obviously Hulk's girlfriend, Jarella, had not died. That's the story. Why put on the cover something, this is a whole package, science fiction, science fantasy, and Hulk pounding action? Well, personally, if that's what they classify as him becoming a barbarian, I find that very unusual, because he doesn't, as far as I can see. Obviously, he's been shrunk down to Jarella's world and all that sort of stuff, but that's not spoiling it. Obviously, anyone who knows the Jarella story, of course, that was a great story. And I think that was always quite obviously, again, not giving anything away, because, of course, you got that in time. As a girlfriend, Jarella had not died. I think it was quite a bad thing. I really wish that the Jarella character, they had never what's her name? I think she should have been a regular, reoccurring character. You know, I mean, maybe they could have had her obviously killed off at some point, but just really having very few adventures with her. Personally, I think that was a disappointment. However, this story, I did feel slightly let down. It's one of those ones where I mentioned that it's sort of like resolved in one panel kind of thing, one or two panels. So I wasn't sort of like, but Herb Trimpe's, I love his artwork, and it's a really nice bit. Yeah, really, really good. But I just don't disagree with the labelling, the barbarian bit. Makes no sense to me whatsoever. However, the next story, and this one, this is what's slightly baffling. I know it sounds like I'm dragging it on, and it's the first celestial host. Is that a what if? I didn't even feel that this was a what if. You got the Celestials coming down. Maybe in the next volume or whatever, next issue, there was something about thing, but it basically to me felt like it was just following the standard story. You know, they come down and they do all the. You got the deviants and various other the Eternals, etc. Anyway, maybe I missed something in that story. It was okay, quite. The Celestial story is always quite good. It'd be interesting if they did a story, a what if story. But again, would it be what if they just gave the origins of the Celestials? Maybe that's been done. Don't know every single comic, so I'm certain maybe it's possible. However, next story. A stunning saga of improbable reality, and that certainly is one. What if Aunt May, instead of her nephew, Peter, had been bitten by a radioactive spider? Yeah. And why? And the villain in this, and I'm not going to spoil it, but the villain is so naff as a villain. Really? Not a character that. Why did that character appear? Anyway, letters page there, and again, bonus to it back, and that's the whole book. I thoroughly enjoyed it though. I must admit, I'd say 60-40. There's a few stories that I think were really good, and a few stories that were not ones that I would say I really enjoyed. So that's What If, the complete collection, volume 2. Now it's obviously a series, volume 1, volume 2, all the way up to volume 4 so far. Hopefully volume 5, volume 6, because there's been lots more What If stories. And lots of pretty decent ones as well. So I hope they're collected as well. So still totally recommended.